Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I'm really glad that we're having this debate today because migration and the future policy regarding this is a massive area of concern at the moment, both from the point of view of the EU citizens who live here and for the businesses and industries that depend on them and the free movement of talent coming from abroad. And as we've already heard mention of, it's one which through the Culture, Tourism, Europe and External Relations Committee we've been investigating with great interest as part of both of our inquiries into the Article 50 negotiations and into a differentiated immigration system for Scotland. Because to me it's essentially quite simple. It is imperative that people continue to come to live and work in this country. To do that, we need a system which reflects the very specific needs of businesses and people in Scotland, which are different to that of the UK as a whole. Now, in the 45 years preceding the turn of the millennium, Scotland's population was in decline. Now, that trend had started to reverse since that time, largely down to the welcome influx of migrants, most notably from Europe to Scotland, to the extent that we now have approximately 283,000 more people living here than in the year 2000, which is an increase of 5.7%. These are people who left their own country for whatever reason to make a better life here in Scotland. Many came as students and stayed on. Many moved here because of the economic situation in their own country and recognising that there are opportunities for them right here. During the evidence sessions of the committee, we heard from members of the Fife Migrants Forum who told us about their individual stories. We heard about their backgrounds, their lives here in Scotland, their fears relating to the withdrawal from the EU, but also about their hopes to be able to continue to make a life for themselves and their families here. 2 weeks ago, we also had a debate in this chamber on the EU negotiations, and I raised my own family's situation, and I'm glad that I did, because since then I've been inundated with information from people in who are in a similar situation or worse. People who've either already left Scotland or are planning to leave because of the uncertainty over their future, or actually most hurtfully because of the fact that they say they no longer felt welcome here. If you follow the 3 million on Twitter or have followed the hashtag 500 days in limbo, you will see story after story outlining the same. People losing out on work and homes, the active discrimination and exploitative practices taking place, and the lack of any engagement and poor communication with EU citizens here on the discussions and negotiations which are going to affect their lives. It's really hard not to get angry at that and the fact that we're now more than 500 days on from the referendum vote and there are still far more questions than answers when it comes to what the future of EU citizens, what the future will be for them post-Brexit. And this was made alarmingly evident in our committee's session with the Secretary of State for Scotland 2 weeks ago, where there were no answers or assurances forthcoming. Because as often as we can be told that the UK are in touching distance of a deal with the EU, that means very little when we still have no idea what settled status will actually mean, when there is no full clarification on what the future will be for low earners, those who are paid cash in hand, or even for the volunteers who come from the EU to work here, especially if we face a no-deal scenario which grows increasingly likely by the day. We need effective migration policy because the fact is that those coming to this country tend to be young, well-qualified and hard-working. Statistically, EU nationals are predominantly under 35 with a much younger age profile across all age groups than Scottish nationals. This means that they are net contributors to our economy and use fewer public services and contribute more to the public services than what they take out, completely debunking the ridiculous myth which is continually perpetuated by the hard-right media and in fact by the Prime Minister herself that they're a drain on public resources. Indeed, many of them coming here use their qualifications to work in our public services. Yes,
Jeremy Balfour.
Can I thank the member for taking an intervention? Would you agree with me that any deal with Europe needs to be two ways and that we also have to secure the rights of UK nationals living in European countries as well as the UK government needing to reach an agreement, so does the European Union have to come to the table and negotiate as well?
Mairi Gougeon.
I think that the EU is already doing that. And of course, I would agree with the member that we need to protect the rights of UK nationals living abroad. Of course we do. But the fact is, the UK government isn't going far enough to protect the rights of EU citizens here. Now, in terms of, when we look at the contribution that is made by the people that live here, when you look at students themselves and the contribution that they make to our economy. This was calculated by University Scotland to be around £800 million annually. Professor Christina Boswell of the Scottish Centre for European Relations stated that we shouldn't be concerned with how to limit inflows, but rather the challenge of sustaining much-needed flows of EU nationals to fill jobs in sectors such as agriculture, services and construction. This was a concern both myself and Graham Day heard about directly in terms of agriculture when we met with the NFUS in my constituency last week. There are options on how we can achieve that. As a committee, we received a detailed report from Dr Eve Hepburn, which outlined examples across the world where this already happens, as well as outlining a number of different approaches that could be adopted. Some options require further devolution of powers from Westminster, but some just require the political will on both sides to make it happen. But what is clear from the evidence we received is that the current system, as it stands, does not address the needs of our public services, businesses and other industries and sectors in Scotland. And those industries and sectors affected do not feel like they can feed into that system in a meaningful way. There is no doubt that the only way we can provide a system that works for Scotland is if we have a direct hand in designing and determining it. And I just hope that there's one message that we can send as a unified Parliament today to all the EU citizens living and working here right now, that we need to let them know that we are proud that they chose to make Scotland their home. We welcome you, we value you, and we will do everything in our power to protect your right to be here. Thank you.
I call Rachel Hamilton to be followed by Joan